Kang Tae-ho stood near the corner of the diplomatic lounge, holding a glass of something blue and fizzy that an alien bartender had promised would not kill him. The drink tasted like flowers mixed with electricity. He was not sure if he liked it, but he kept sipping anyway because it gave him something to do with his hands. The lounge was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some looked like walking trees. Tae-ho had been working on the Galactic Union station called Harmony's Rest for almost 2 years now, but he still felt a little amazed every time he saw so many different species in one room. His job was simple. He was a cultural liaison, which meant he answered questions about Earth and humans. Most aliens found humans fascinating. They wanted to know why humans laughed at danger, why they formed emotional bonds so easily, and why they insisted on keeping pets that could not even speak. Tae-ho did his best to explain, though sometimes he did not have good answers himself. Tonight was a formal mixer event. The Galactic Union hosted these events to help different species understand each other better. Tae-ho had attended many of them. Usually, they were boring. He would answer the same questions, eat strange food, and go back to his room tired but satisfied that he had done his job. But tonight felt different. He noticed them the moment they walked in. 2 tall women with silver-blue skin that seemed to glow softly under the lights. Their eyes were pale violet, and their white hair was pulled back in complex braids decorated with small metal beads. They wore armor that looked both beautiful and deadly, with curved blades hanging at their hips. They moved like predators, scanning the room with sharp eyes. Velari. Tae-ho recognized them immediately. The Velari were famous across the galaxy. They were a warrior species with a proud history and strict traditions. Their homeworld had been destroyed long ago, and now they lived on ships and stations, serving as soldiers and guards for hire. They were respected and feared in equal measure. Tae-ho had never spoken to a Velari before. They usually kept to themselves at these events, standing in corners and watching everyone with suspicion. But tonight, the 2 Velari women walked straight toward him. He swallowed nervously. The taller one spoke first. Her voice was deep and smooth like honey. "You are the human, called Kang Tae-ho." "Yes." "The one who explains your species to others?" "That is me," Tae-ho said, trying to sound confident. "How can I help you?" "I am Aila," the tall one said. "This is my twin sister, Vela. We have questions about human customs." Vela nodded, but did not speak. She watched Tae-ho with curious eyes, her head tilted slightly to one side, like a cat studying a new toy. "Of course," Tae-ho said. "Ask me anything." Ayla stepped closer. She was at least a head taller than him, and he had to look up to meet her eyes. "We wish to understand human bonding rituals. How do humans choose their mates?" Tae-ho blinked. This was not the usual question. Most aliens asked about human food or music, or why humans enjoyed watching other humans pretend to be different people on screens. Mating questions were rare. "Well," he said slowly, "humans usually look for someone they connect with emotionally. Someone who makes them laugh. Someone they can trust. We date for a while. Get to know each other. And if things go well, we might decide to become partners." "Date?" Vela spoke for the first time. Her voice was softer than her sister's, but had a sharp edge beneath it. "What is this date?" "It is when 2 people spend time together to see if they are compatible," Tae-ho explained. "They might eat food together, watch entertainment, or just talk." The twins looked at each other. Something passed between them, a silent communication that Tae-ho could not read. Ayla turned back to him. "And do you have a claimed mate, Kang Tae-ho?" Tae-ho laughed. The question caught him off guard, and he answered without thinking. "Me? No. I am single. Completely unclaimed. Nobody has wanted to put up with me yet." He meant it as a joke. On Earth, saying you were single was no big deal. People said it all the time. It was just a fact, not an invitation. But the moment the words left his mouth, the twins went very still. Ayla's eyes widened slightly. Vela drew in a sharp breath. They looked at each other again. And this time, Tae-ho could see excitement in their faces. You declare yourself unclaimed, Ayla said slowly. In the presence of Velari warriors. Do you understand what this means? Teho felt his stomach drop. No. I was just answering your question. Vela smiled. It was a small smile. But it made Teho's heart beat faster, and not in a good way. In Velari culture, when someone declares themselves unclaimed before warriors, it is an invitation, a challenge. You are saying that you are worthy of being pursued, and that you welcome those who wish to prove themselves to you. What? Teho's voice came out higher than he intended. No. I did not mean that at all. I was just being honest. Words have power, Ayla said. You have spoken them. They cannot be taken back. She stepped even closer, and Teho could smell something like rain and metal coming from her skin. By our law, you have opened yourself to the right of pursuit, and we accept your declaration. We both accept, Vela added, moving to stand beside her sister. The twins now formed a wall of silver-blue muscle and sharp smiles in front of Teho. We will compete for the honor of claiming you, human. Teho looked around desperately. His colleague, Yoon Ha-na, was across the room talking to a group of feathered aliens. She had not noticed his situation. No one had. To everyone else, it just looked like Teho was having a pleasant conversation with two beautiful alien women. They did not see the trap closing around him. Listen, Teho said, trying to keep his voice calm. There has been a misunderstanding. Humans do not have this right of pursuit. Where I come from, saying you are single is not a challenge. It is just information. But you are not on your world, Ayla said. You are here. In Galactic Union space, speaking to Velari. Our customs apply. The rite will last 60 station cycles, Vela explained. During this time, we will prove our worth to you. We will bring gifts, demonstrate our strength, and show you why you should choose one of us as your mate. And at the end? Teho asked weakly. The twins exchanged another look. This one was darker. At the end, Ayla said. If you have not chosen, we will duel for the right to claim you. Duel? Teho repeated. Like a fight? To the death, Vela confirmed. It is the only honorable way to settle such matters. Teho felt the room spin. He had come to this mixer expecting boring conversations and strange drinks. Instead, he had accidentally started an alien courtship ritual that could end with two women killing each other over him, all because he said he was single. Ayla smiled, showing teeth that were slightly sharper than human teeth. Rest well tonight, Kang Teho. Tomorrow, the rite begins. The twins turned and walked away together, their steps perfectly matched, their braids swinging behind them. Teho stood frozen, his blue drink forgotten in his hand. Across the room, Hana finally looked his way. She saw his pale face and started walking toward him with concern in her eyes. He was going to need a lot more than fizzy flower drinks to survive this. Teho woke up to a loud banging on his door. His head hurt from a night of poor sleep filled with strange dreams about silver-skinned women chasing him through endless corridors. He groaned and pulled his blanket over his face, hoping whoever it was would go away. The banging continued. Teho, open this door right now. It was Hana's voice, and she sounded panicked. He dragged himself out of bed and stumbled to the door. When it slid open, Hana pushed past him without waiting for an invitation. Her eyes were wide, and she was breathing fast like she had been running. Have you seen what is outside your door? She demanded. What? Teho rubbed his eyes. I just woke up. Hana grabbed his arm and pulled him into the hallway. Teho's mouth fell open. The floor outside his quarters was covered with gifts. There were weapons with curved blades and handles wrapped in leather. There were boxes filled with gemstones that sparkled in colors Teho had never seen before. There were what looked like animal skulls with horns and fangs, polished until they shone. There was even a large piece of metal armor decorated with beautiful patterns. What is all this? Teho whispered. Velari courtship gifts, Hana said grimly. I did some research last night after you told me what happened. The twins are serious, Teho. Very serious. Taeho picked up one of the gemstones. It was warm in his hand, and light seemed to move inside it like a living thing. These must be worth a fortune. Taeho. The skull belonged to a creature called a storm bear, Hana said, pointing at the largest skull. They are extremely dangerous. Killing one is considered a great achievement among Valari warriors. She paused. There are 2 storm bear skulls here. One from each twin. Taeho put down the gemstone carefully. They killed deadly monsters. For me, to prove their strength and hunting skill. This is just the beginning. Hana pulled out her datapad and showed him the screen. I found records about the rite of pursuit. The twins will spend the next 60 cycles trying to impress you. They will bring gifts, display their combat abilities, learn about your culture, and protect you from any perceived threats. Protect me? Taeho asked. As if answering his question, a young alien man walked past them in the hallway. He was from a species Taeho did not recognize, with green skin and large eyes. The alien glanced at Taeho with mild curiosity. From around the corner, Ayla appeared. She moved so fast that Taeho barely saw her. One moment the hallway was empty, and the next moment, Ayla was standing between Taeho and the green-skinned alien, her hand on her blade. You look at him with interest, Ayla said coldly. Explain yourself. The alien's large eyes grew even larger with fear. I was just walking to my room. I meant no offense. Ayla, stop. Taeho stepped forward. He did nothing wrong. He just looked at me for a second. Ayla did not move for a long moment. Then she slowly took her hand off her blade and stepped aside. The green alien practically ran down the hallway, disappearing around another corner. You should not defend others so quickly, Ayla said to Taeho. During the rite, anyone who shows too much interest in you could be a rival. I must eliminate rivals. Eliminate? Taeho's voice cracked. Please do not eliminate anyone. He was just a random person walking by. Ayla studied him with those pale violet eyes. You are strange, human. Most would be pleased to have a Valari warrior protecting them. I am not most humans, Taeho said weakly. Vela appeared from the other direction, carrying a covered tray. She was wearing simpler clothes than last night, and her white hair was loose around her shoulders. She looked almost soft, though Taeho reminded himself that she was still a deadly warrior. Good morning, Vela said pleasantly. I have prepared a human breakfast for you. I researched your cuisine and attempted to recreate something called pancakes. She lifted the cover from the tray. The pancakes underneath were blue. They were also shaped like hexagons instead of circles. But they smelled surprisingly good. You learned to cook human food? Taeho asked, surprised. I am studying your language as well, Vela said. Your Korean tongue is complex, but beautiful. She said a phrase in Korean that was almost correct, though her accent was heavy. Did I say that right? It means, good morning. Taeho could not help but smile a little. Close enough. That was very impressive. Vela's face lit up with pride. Beside her, Ayla frowned. I have killed 2 storm bears for him, Ayla muttered. She makes strange flat bread and suddenly she is impressive. The rite is not only about strength, Vela replied smoothly. It is also about compatibility and understanding. The 2 sisters glared at each other. Taeho could feel tension crackling between them like electricity. Hana grabbed Taeho's arm and pulled him back toward his room. We need to talk, privately. Inside his quarters, Hana closed the door and turned to face him with a serious expression. I spoke to Ambassador Baek this morning. He is very concerned about this situation. The ambassador knows, Taeho groaned. Great. Now it is a diplomatic incident. The Valari are important allies, Hana said. Their warriors serve on many stations and ships throughout the Union. Ayla and Vela's father is High Commander Dorek, one of the most respected Valari leaders. If you reject his daughters outright, it could be seen as an insult to their entire family. Taeho sat down heavily on his bed. So I cannot say no? Not directly. At least not yet. Hana sat beside him. Ambassador Bake says you need to participate in the rite. At least for now. We need time to find a diplomatic solution that does not offend anyone. Participate how? Accept their gifts politely. Let them demonstrate their skills. Do not favor one over the other, and do not reject either of them. Hana paused. And whatever you do not let them reach the final duel. We have 60 cycles to figure something out. Teho thought about the two women waiting outside his door. Kayla, with her fierce protectiveness and deadly skills. Kayla, with her soft voice and genuine effort to understand his culture. They were both beautiful in their alien way. They were both clearly serious about this rite, and if he could not find a way out, one of them would die. There has to be some rule, some exception. Teho said. Some way to end this without anyone getting hurt. I will keep researching, Hana promised. But Valari culture is complicated. They have thousands of years of traditions. Finding a loophole will not be easy. A knock came at the door. It was gentle but firm. Kang Teho. Ayla's voice came through. The breakfast my sister made is getting cold. You should eat while it is warm. Also, I wish to show you my blade techniques today. You should see what I am capable of. And I have arranged a tour of the station gardens, Vela's voice added. I read that humans enjoy nature and flowers. Teho looked at Hana helplessly. She shrugged. Good luck, she whispered. You are going to need it. Teho took a deep breath and opened the door. The twins stood there. Both tall and beautiful and deadly. Both looking at him with expectation in their violet eyes. Okay, he said. Let me eat these blue pancakes. Then we can. Do whatever this rite requires. Everly. Ever. Both sisters smiled. It was terrifying and attractive at the same time. Teho wondered how his life had gone so wrong so quickly. Just yesterday, he had been a simple cultural liaison. Now he had two alien warriors fighting for his heart. A diplomatic crisis on his shoulders, and a possible death duel hanging over his head. All because he said 4 little words. I am single. He really needed to learn to keep his mouth shut. 20 cycles had passed since the rite began. Teho's quarters now looked like a museum of Valari culture. Weapons hung on his walls, gemstones filled his shelves, strange and beautiful artifacts from a dozen worlds covered every surface. He had stopped trying to refuse the gifts after the first week. The twins simply left them outside his door, whether he accepted them or not. But something had started to change inside Teho. At first, he saw Ayla and Vela only as problems to solve, obstacles to navigate around. Now, after spending time with them every day, he was beginning to see them as people. Complicated, frightening, strangely wonderful people. He spent his nights in the station's cultural archives, reading everything he could find about the Valari. The more he learned, the more his heart ached for them. The Valari homeworld had been called Velar Prime. It was a beautiful planet of vast oceans and purple mountains. The Valari had lived there for over 10,000 years, building a civilization based on honor, strength, and family bonds. Then, 300 years ago, their son had begun to die. Slowly, at first, then faster and faster. The Valari had tried everything to save their world, but in the end, they could only watch as their home turned cold and dark. Less than 1 million Valari survived. They scattered across the galaxy, taking jobs as soldiers and guards, living on stations and ships that belonged to other species. They were a dying people, and they knew it. Every generation, their numbers grew smaller. Every year, fewer children were born. That was why mating was so important to them. It was not just about love or attraction. It was about survival. Choosing a mate meant choosing to continue the Valari bloodline. It was a sacred duty, treated with the same seriousness as going to war. Teho closed the archive files and stared at the ceiling of his room. He thought about Ayla and Vela in a new way now. They were not just warriors competing for a prize. They were daughters of a dying people, trying to fulfill an obligation they had carried since birth. The next evening, Teho invited both twins to have dinner with him. Not the formal courtship meals they had been sharing, with rituals and rules. Just a simple dinner, where they could talk like normal people. They met in a small private dining room that Taeho had reserved. The twins arrived together but sat on opposite sides of the table, as was their custom during the rite. Taeho sat at the head, between them. "I have been reading about Velar Prime," Taeho said after the food arrived. "I am sorry about what happened to your world." Both twins went still. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "Most outsiders do not mention our homeworld," Ayla finally said. Her voice was careful, guarded. "They find the subject uncomfortable." "It is uncomfortable," Taeho agreed. "But it is also important. It is part of who you are." He paused. "I want to understand you. Both of you. Not just as warriors, but as people." Vela looked at her sister, then back at Taeho. "What do you want to know? Tell me about your lives. Not the official stories. The real ones." Another long silence. Then Ayla spoke. "I was given my first command when I was young," she said slowly. 30 warriors under my leadership. We were sent to protect a supply convoy from pirates." Her hands tightened around her glass. "I made a mistake. I was too aggressive, too eager to prove myself. I led my soldiers into a trap. 8 of them died because of my foolishness." Taeho watched her face. For the first time since he had met her, Ayla looked vulnerable. The fierce warrior who challenged anyone who looked at him wrong now seemed like a young woman carrying a heavy weight. "I am sorry," Taeho said softly. "I learned from it," Ayla continued. "I became more careful, more protective. I swore I would never lose another soldier under my command. But the guilt remains. It will always remain." Vela reached across the table and briefly touched her sister's hand. It was a small gesture, gone as quickly as it appeared. But Taeho noticed it. "And you?" Taeho asked Vela. "What is your story?" Vela smiled. But it was a sad smile. "I am the second twin. The younger one by 3 minutes. In Velari culture, the elder twin is always the warrior. The younger twin is supposed to support, to follow." She shrugged. "But I never wanted to follow. I wanted to lead in my own way." "What way is that?" "Strategy. Tactics. Understanding enemies and allies. Seeing patterns that others miss." Vela's eyes grew brighter as she spoke. "I am good at it. Very good. But our culture values strength you can see. Swords and armor and battle cries. My skills are invisible. They happen in the mind. In planning rooms. Not on battlefields. So people overlook you," Taeho said. "Always. I am always the other twin." Ayla's quiet shadow. Vela did not sound bitter, just tired. "I thought perhaps if I could win the right, if I could claim a strong mate on my own, people would finally see me differently." Taeho looked between the two sisters. "Warriors, yes. Dangerous, certainly. But also daughters carrying the expectations of a dying species. Rivals forced to compete by customs they did not choose." "Do you actually want to fight each other?" he asked suddenly. "At the end of the rite? Do you truly want one of you to die?" The twins exchanged a look. It lasted only a second. But Taeho saw something flash between them. Pain. Fear. And underneath it all, love. "It is tradition," Ayla said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Tradition does not always mean right," Taeho replied. "On Earth, we had many traditions that we eventually realized were cruel and pointless. We changed them. We grew." "Velari do not change," Vela said. "Our ways have kept us alive for 300 years since losing our home." "Have they?" Taeho leaned forward. "You said your people grow smaller. Every generation. Maybe some traditions are not keeping you alive. Maybe some are slowly killing you." Both twins stared at him. No one had ever spoken to them this way before. Certainly no outsider had ever questioned Velari customs so directly. "You are bold, human," Ayla said. "I am honest," Taeho replied. "I care about both of you. I do not want either of you to die. And I do not think you want to kill each other either." Before either sister could respond, Teho's communication device buzzed. He looked at the screen and felt his stomach drop. "What is it?" Vela asked. "A message from Ambassador Bake." Teho read the words twice to make sure he understood them. "Your father is coming. High Commander Doric will arrive at the station in 3 cycles. He wants to oversee the rest of the rite personally." Ayla's face went pale beneath her silver-blue skin. Vela's hands trembled slightly. "Our father is very traditional," Ayla said quietly. "He will not appreciate your questions about our customs. He will expect us to follow the rite exactly," Vela added, "including the final duel." Teho looked at the 2 women who had become so important to him in such a short time. The fierce warrior, with hidden guilt. The brilliant strategist hiding in her sister's shadow. Both trapped by rules they did not make. "Then we have 3 cycles to figure something out," Teho said. "Because I am not going to let either of you die. Not for me. Not for anyone." Ayla and Vela looked at him with something new in their violet eyes. Hope, maybe. Or wonder. Perhaps, they seemed to think, this strange human was more than he appeared. High Commander Doric was exactly what Teho had expected and feared. He was tall, even for a Valari, with shoulders as wide as a doorway and arms thick with muscle. His silver-blue skin was covered in old scars, each one telling a story of battles survived. His white hair was cut short in a military style, and his violet eyes were cold and sharp like chips of ice. He arrived on the station with a group of elite Valari warriors, all of them moving in perfect formation like a single deadly machine. Station security watched nervously as the delegation marched through the corridors. Teho stood waiting with Ayla and Vela in the main receiving hall. Ambassador Bake was beside him, sweating nervously and whispering last-minute advice. "Be respectful but not weak," Bake said quickly. "Valari respect strength. Do not apologize too much. Do not look away from his eyes. And whatever you do not make jokes. He will not understand human humor." "Wonderful," Teho muttered. "No pressure at all." The High Commander stopped in front of them. He looked at his daughters first, giving them each a brief nod. Then his eyes moved to Teho, and his expression became unreadable. "So," Doric said, his voice deep and rumbling like thunder. "This is the human my daughters have been fighting over." "High Commander." Teho bowed slightly, the way Hana had taught him. "It is an honor to meet you, is it?" Doric circled Teho slowly, examining him like a merchant examining goods of questionable quality. "You are small, soft. Your arms are thin, and I see no weapons on your body." He stopped in front of Teho again. "Explain to me why my daughters, 2 of the finest warriors our people have produced in this generation, would waste their time on you." Teho felt anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. Getting angry would not help. "Perhaps they see something you do not," Teho said calmly. The hall went silent. Even Ambassador Bake stopped breathing. Doric stared at Teho for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. It was a harsh sound, without much warmth, but it was still a laugh. "You have courage. Good. You will need it." Doric turned to address the room. "I have decided that this human must prove himself worthy through the trial of valor. 3 challenges to test combat, survival, and tactical thinking. If he fails, the rite ends, and my daughters will return home with me." "Father," Vela started to protest. But Doric silenced her with a look. "This is not negotiable. If this human wants to claim Valari mates, he must show he is more than a soft creature who speaks pretty words." Teho swallowed hard. "When do we begin?" "Tomorrow. Rest while you can, human. You will need your strength." The first trial was combat. Teho entered the station's arena to find a Valari warrior waiting for him. The warrior was younger than Doric but still bigger than Teho, with fresh scars on his arms and eager eyes. "You do not need to defeat him," Hana had explained that morning. "You just need to survive for 10 minutes. That is the rule." 10 minutes sounded short until Teho found himself dodging blade swings that could have cut him in half. The Valari warrior was fast, strong, and clearly enjoying himself. The crowd of watching aliens cheered and gasped. Taeho could not match the warrior's strength or speed, so he did not try. Instead, he used the arena's environment. He pushed obstacles between them. He threw sand in the warrior's eyes. When the warrior charged, Taeho dove out of the way at the last moment, letting his opponent crash into walls. The crowd began to murmur. This was not fighting the way Valari understood it. This was something else entirely. At the 7-minute mark, the warrior finally caught Taeho with a blow that sent him spinning across the floor. Pain exploded through his ribs. Taeho tasted blood in his mouth. Every part of him screamed to stay down. He got up anyway. The warrior hit him again. Taeho fell, and got up again and again. Each time he fell, Taeho forced himself back to his feet. His body was broken and bleeding. But something inside him refused to stop. Some human stubbornness that would not quit. When the 10 minutes ended, Taeho was barely standing. Blood ran down his face, and his left arm hung uselessly at his side. But he was standing. The crowd was completely silent. Then, slowly, they began to cheer. Even Doric looked impressed. "Humans are fragile," he said quietly to his advisor. "But they do not know when to fall." The second trial was survival. Taeho was placed in a simulation of a hostile environment. A jungle world with poisonous plants, dangerous creatures, and no tools except his own hands and mind. He used human knowledge. He built traps to catch food. He made fire using friction. He created tools from stones and sticks. When predators came, he did not fight them directly. He distracted them, led them away, or hid until they lost interest. Valari survival training focused on facing threats head-on. Taeho survived by being clever. He found water by following insects. He made medicine from plants he recognized from Earth biology studies. He built a shelter that kept him safe and hidden. When the simulation ended, the Valari judges gathered to discuss. They had never seen survival tactics quite like this before. "Humans are frightening," one judge admitted. "They adapt to anything." The third trial was tactical. Taeho sat before a holographic display showing a simulated fleet battle. He commanded a small fleet against a much larger enemy force. Valari tactics were straightforward. Direct assault, overwhelming force, glorious charges. Taeho played differently. He retreated when they expected him to attack. He sacrificed ships to draw the enemy into traps. He used decoys and false signals to confuse the enemy commanders. He employed psychological warfare, sending taunting messages that made the enemy admiral angry and careless. In the end, Taeho won the battle with half his fleet remaining against an enemy that had started with 3 times his numbers. High Commander Doric watched the replay of the battle twice. His expression was troubled. "You do not fight like a Valari," Doric said finally. "No," Taeho agreed. "I fight like a human. You lie. You cheat. You trick. I win." Taeho met the commander's eyes without flinching. "Is that not what matters?" Doric was silent for a long time. The entire hall waited. "I give my approval for the right to continue," Doric said at last. His voice was grudging but genuine. "You have proven yourself adaptable. Perhaps there is value in that." Taeho felt relief wash through him, but it was short-lived. "However," Doric continued, "my approval does not change the right itself. At the end, my daughters must still compete for you. The final duel will proceed as tradition demands." Taeho looked at Ayla and Vela, standing together across the hall. They looked back at him with complicated expressions. Pride in his survival. Fear for what was still to come. He had passed the commander's tests, but the real challenge was still ahead, and he was running out of time to find another way. Taeho had not slept in 3 days. His eyes were red, his body ached from the trials, and his mind felt like it was wrapped in thick fog, but he could not stop. The final duel was only 15 cycles away, and he still had not found a way to prevent it. The cultural archives had become his second home. He read every document about Valari mating customs. He studied every historical case of the right of pursuit. He searched for exceptions, loopholes, anything that might save Ayla and Vela from fighting each other. Hana brought him food that he barely touched. She brought him water that he forgot to drink. She watched him with worried eyes but said nothing. She knew how important this was. On the fourth night without sleep, Teho found it. It was buried deep in the oldest archives, in records so ancient that the language had to be translated twice before he could read it. A passage about a ceremony that had not been performed in over 1,000 years. The rite of shared claiming. Teho read the passage again and again, making sure he understood it correctly. In the early days of Valari civilization, when their population was larger and their culture less rigid, twins sometimes shared a mate rather than fighting over one. The ceremony was designed to strengthen family bonds instead of breaking them. Two sisters could claim the same person together, becoming co-mates instead of rivals. The practice had fallen out of use centuries ago. Modern Valari considered it old-fashioned and embarrassing. But according to the archives, it was still technically legal. The laws had never been formally changed. Teho sat back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. His heart was beating fast. This could work. This could actually work. But it would not be easy. The twins would have to agree. High Commander Doric would have to approve, and Teho himself would have to be willing to take two mates instead of one. He thought about Ayla and Vela. Really thought about them. Ayla with her fierce protectiveness, her hidden guilt, her desperate desire to keep everyone safe. She had spent the rite guarding him, like he was precious treasure. She had learned to control her aggression for his sake. Under all that warrior pride was a heart that loved deeply and feared loss terribly. Vela with her brilliant mind, her quiet strength, her longing to be seen as more than a shadow. She had learned his language and his cooking. She had shown him the station gardens and shared her dreams with him in soft, whispered conversations. Under her calm surface was a fire that burned just as bright as her sister's. Teho realized something that surprised him. He did not want to choose between them. Not because he could not decide, but because choosing felt wrong. They were both remarkable. They both had become important to him. Picking one meant hurting the other, and he did not want to hurt either of them. Maybe the old Valari had the right idea after all. The next evening, Teho asked to meet with Ayla alone. They walked together through the quiet corridors of the station's upper levels, where the windows showed nothing but stars. "You have been researching," Ayla said. It was not a question. "Yes." Teho stopped walking and turned to face her. "I found something in the archives. An old ceremony called the Rite of Shared Claiming." Ayla's expression changed. Surprise, then confusion, then something Teho could not read. "I know of it. It is ancient history. No one has performed it in my lifetime, but it is still legal, technically." Ayla shook her head. "But it is considered shameful, weak. Two warriors unable to settle their dispute, so they both claim the prize. Our father would never approve." Teho stepped closer. "Ayla, do you actually want to kill your sister?" The question hung in the air between them. Ayla's jaw tightened. Her hands curled into fists at her sides. "She is my twin," Ayla finally said. Her voice was rough, with emotion. "We shared our mother's womb. We learned to walk together, to fight together. She is the other half of me." Ayla looked away, toward the stars outside the window. "I do not want to kill her, but I also do not know any other way. I am offering you another way," Teho said gently. "No death, no loss. Both of you could claim me together, as partners instead of rivals. Unlong 7. Unlong 7 time. Teho 7. Unlong 7. Unlong 7 time. Unlong 7 time." Ayla turned back to him. Her violet eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Why would you do this? You could simply choose one of us and avoid all this trouble." "Because I care about both of you." Teho reached out and took her hand. Her fingers were warm and strong around his. "And because I believe family should not destroy each other over tradition." The next day, Teho had the same conversation with Vela. They sat together in the station gardens, surrounded by flowers from 100 different worlds. The right of shared claiming, Vela repeated softly. I read about it once, when I was young. I thought it sounded romantic. Two sisters so bonded that they would share their hearts as well as their blood. But you never told anyone? Vela smiled sadly. I learned early not to speak of things that others consider weakness. A strategist survives by keeping her thoughts hidden. Teho looked at her. What do you think now? Would you share with Ayla? Would you both share with me? Vela was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thoughtful. My sister and I have been rivals since birth. Our culture made us that way. Compete. Compete. Always compete. First in training. First in combat. First to claim a worthy mate. She picked a flower from the garden bed and studied it. I am tired of competing with her. She is the only family I have. I do not want her dead. I want her beside me. Then help me convince your father, Teho said. If both of you stand together and request this ceremony, he might listen. Our father does not bend easily. Then we will have to be convincing. Teho met her eyes. I survived his trials. I proved that humans do not give up. This is just another challenge, Vela, and I am very good at finding solutions that others think are impossible. Vela laughed softly. It was a beautiful sound, light and genuine. You are strange, Kang Teho. No other being in the galaxy would look at two Valari warriors and think, why choose one when I can have both? I am human, Teho replied. We do not accept impossible situations. We change them. Vela leaned over and did something unexpected. She pressed her lips to his cheek in a soft kiss. Then let us change this situation together. That night, Ayla and Vela came to Teho's quarters together. For the first time since the rite began, they stood side by side instead of apart. They looked at each other, then at Teho. We have discussed it, Ayla said. We have agreed, Vela added. We will invoke the right of shared claiming, they said together. Teho felt a weight lift from his chest, but another weight remained. Now we just need to convince your father. The twins exchanged a worried look. That, Ayla admitted, will be the hardest challenge of all. The formal court was held in the largest chamber on the station, a vast circular room with high ceilings and walls decorated with flags from every species in the Galactic Union. High Commander Dorek sat on a raised platform at one end, surrounded by his advisors and elite warriors. Valari from across the station had gathered to witness what was supposed to be the announcement of the final duel. Teho stood at the center of the room with Ayla and Vela on either side of him. His heart was pounding so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. Around them, hundreds of eyes watched and waited. We have come to discuss the conclusion of the right of pursuit, Dorek announced. His voice filled the chamber like thunder. In 3 cycles, my daughters will face each other in honorable combat. The winner will claim the human as her mate. This is our way. This is tradition. Father. Vela stepped forward. Her voice was calm and clear, though Teho could see her hands trembling slightly. We wish to speak. Dorek raised an eyebrow. Speak then, but be quick. Vela glanced at Ayla, who nodded. Together, they turned to face their father. We do not wish to duel, Ayla said. We request permission to invoke the right of shared claiming. The chamber erupted in whispers. Valari turned to each other with shocked expressions. Some looked confused, others looked offended. A few of the younger warriors looked curious. Dorek's face darkened like a storm cloud. He rose from his seat, his massive form towering over everyone in the room. The right of shared claiming? His voice was cold with anger. That relic? That embarrassment from ancient times? You would shame yourselves and our family with such weakness? It is not weakness, Vela replied steadily. It is wisdom. Wisdom, Dorek laughed harshly. 2 warriors who cannot settle their own dispute? 2 sisters so pathetic that they must share what should belong to one? This is not wisdom. This is cowardice. Ayla stepped forward, her own temper rising. Is it cowardice to preserve family instead of destroying it? Is it cowardice to find a solution that does not require one of us to bury the other? Solutions. Dorek spat the word. There is only one solution to conflict. Strength. Victory. This has been the Valari way for thousands of years, and look where that way has brought us. Vela's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. The whispers stopped. Everyone turned to stare at her. We are dying, Father. Every generation, fewer children are born. Every decade, our numbers shrink. We scatter across the galaxy, taking jobs from other species because we have no home of our own. How much longer can we survive like this? Dorek's expression flickered. For just a moment, Tejo saw something behind the anger. Pain. Fear. The knowledge that his daughter spoke truth. Our traditions keep us strong, Dorek said. But his voice had lost some of its force. Some traditions keep us strong, Ayla agreed. But some traditions only keep us small. We hold on to the old ways so tightly that we cannot grow. We cannot change. We cannot adapt. She looked at Tejo. The human taught me that. Humans change their traditions when those traditions no longer serve them. They admit when they are wrong and find new paths forward. Tejo realized it was his turn to speak. He stepped forward, feeling the weight of every eye in the room pressing down on him. High Commander, he began. I know I am an outsider. I know my words may mean nothing to someone who has lived by Valari traditions his entire life. But I ask you to listen anyway. Dorek did not tell him to be silent. That was something. On Earth, we had many traditions that we once thought were sacred and unchangeable, Tejo continued. We had traditions that made families into enemies. We had traditions that destroyed people for the sake of honor. We clung to them because they were old, because our ancestors had followed them, because we were afraid of what might happen if we let them go. He paused, gathering his thoughts. But eventually, we learned that traditions are tools, not chains. They are supposed to serve us, not the other way around. When a tradition stops making our lives better, when it only brings suffering, we have the courage to change it. You speak of courage, Dorek said slowly, yet you ask my daughters to avoid combat. I ask them to choose each other instead of destroying each other. Tejo met the commander's eyes. You want your daughters to have strong children? Then let them have children who grow up with 2 mothers and an aunt, instead of children who grow up knowing their mother killed their aunt for a man. The chamber was completely silent now. Tejo could hear his own heartbeat. The Valari are a proud people, he said. Strong and honorable. I have seen that in Ayla and Vela. They are everything good about your culture. But they are also more than warriors. Ayla carries guilt for soldiers she lost, and she has learned that true strength is protecting, not destroying. Vela has a brilliant mind that could lead fleets to victory, but your culture told her that invisible strength does not count. Tejo stepped closer to the platform where Dorek stood. Your daughters deserve better than dying on each other's swords. Your people deserve better than traditions that tear families apart. You have a chance right now to show the galaxy that Valari can evolve, can grow, can become something new, without losing what makes you great. He stopped. There was nothing more to say. Dorek stared at him for a long, terrible moment. Then his gaze moved to his daughters, standing together for perhaps the first time in their adult lives, not as rivals, not as competitors, as sisters. You truly want this? Dorek asked them quietly. Both of you? Yes, father, Ayla said. Yes, Vela echoed. And you? Dorek turned back to Tejo. You would take them both? Share your life with 2 Valari warriors? Tejo nodded. I would be honored. Dorek was silent. The entire chamber held its breath. Then, unexpectedly, the High Commander laughed. It was a different laugh than before. Warmer somehow, with less edge. You know, Dorek said, when you first arrived at this station, I thought you were nothing. A soft human who had stumbled into something he could not handle. He shook his head slowly. But you survived my trials. You refused to give up, even when your body was broken. And now you stand before me. Not begging for mercy, but arguing for change. For my daughters. For their future. Doric stepped down from the platform and approached Tejo until they were face to face. Perhaps, the commander said quietly, the Valari can learn something from humanity after all. Creating. Perhaps, he turned to face the gathered crowd. I grant permission for the right of shared claiming, Doric announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. My daughters will share this human as their mate. This is my decision. Let no one question it. The chamber erupted into chaos. Some Valari shouted in protest. Others cheered. The younger warriors seemed excited by this break from tradition. The older ones looked troubled, but thoughtful. But Tejo barely heard any of it. He felt Ayla grab one of his hands, and Vela grabbed the other. They held on tight. All three of them together. As the world changed around them, against all odds, they had done it. They had defied tradition and won. The ceremony took place in the most beautiful space on the station. A grand observation hall, with transparent walls that showed the endless sea of stars all around them. Guests from dozens of species had come to witness what everyone was calling the most unusual wedding in galactic history. Tejo stood at the center of the hall, wearing a blend of human and Valari formal clothing. A dark suit in the Korean style, paired with a ceremonial sash decorated with Valari symbols. His hands were steady, but his heart raced with a mixture of nervousness and joy. Ayla and Vela entered together, walking side by side in perfect step. They wore matching armor, polished until it shone like mirrors, with flowing silver capes trailing behind them. Their white hair was braided with gemstones, and their violet eyes were bright with emotion. They had never looked more beautiful. The ceremony began with Valari traditions. High Commander Doric, acting as witness, spoke ancient words about strength, honor, and the binding of souls. Ayla and Vela each recited vows, promising to protect and cherish their mate, to stand with him against all enemies, to share their lives and their futures with him. Then came the marking ceremony. Using ceremonial paint made from minerals found only on the ruins of Velar Prime, Ayla drew symbols on Tejo's right arm. The symbols meant guardian and claimed. Vela drew matching symbols on his left arm. The paint would fade in time, but the meaning would remain forever. Then it was Tejo's turn to offer something from his own culture. He reached into his pocket and pulled out two small boxes. Inside each box was a simple ring made of silver, designed to look like two hands holding a heart. In Korean tradition, the heart symbolized love, and the hands symbolized protection. On Earth, Tejo said, his voice steady but emotional, we give rings to show our commitment. The circle has no end, just like our bond will have no end. He took Ayla's hand first and slid the ring onto her finger. Then he did the same for Vela. I promise to love you both equally, to support you both always, and to spend my life learning everything about you. Both sisters looked at the rings on their fingers. Ayla blinked rapidly, fighting back tears she would never admit to. Vela smiled so widely that her face seemed to glow. Your human traditions are simple, Ayla said softly, but beautiful. Sometimes simple is best, Tejo replied. The ceremony ended with all three of them standing together, hands joined, as the gathered crowd cheered and applauded. Valari warriors banged their blades against their shields in celebration. Humans clapped and whistled. Aliens of every species made their own sounds of approval. Hana was crying openly in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a cloth. Ambassador Bake stood beside her, looking both relieved and amazed, like a man who had just watched a disaster become a miracle. Even High Commander Doric seemed moved. He approached the newly bonded trio with something that might have been softness in his hard eyes. You have given me much to think about, human, Doric said to Tejo. Perhaps it is time for the Valari to examine our traditions more carefully, to keep what strengthens us and let go of what holds us back. That is all I ever wanted, Tejo replied. For everyone to have a chance at happiness. Doric nodded slowly. Take care of my daughters. They are precious to me. I will, I promise. The reception lasted for hours. Food from a dozen worlds covered long tables. Music played, mixing human melodies with Valari war chants and alien harmonies. Tejo found himself passed from group to group, receiving congratulations and curious questions in equal measure. Other species were fascinated by what had happened. Word of the unprecedented union was already spreading across the Galactic Union. A human had not only survived Valari courtship, but had changed an ancient tradition and claimed 2 elite warriors as his mates. The story seemed impossible, yet here was the proof standing before them. "You have started something," Ambassador Bake told Tejo during a quiet moment. "Other species are reaching out to humanity now. They want to understand us better. They want to know what makes us so different." "Different good or different bad?" Tejo asked. "Different, interesting." Bake smiled. "You solved an impossible problem through creativity and compassion." That caught people's attention. Maybe the galaxy is ready for more human influence. Later, as the celebration continued, Hana found Tejo sitting alone for a moment, taking a break from all the attention. "So," she said, sitting beside him, "how does it feel to be the most famous human in this part of the galaxy?" "Exhausting," Tejo admitted, "but also wonderful. Strange but wonderful." Hana nudged him with her elbow. "You know, when you told me what happened at that mixer, I thought your life was over. I thought there was no way you could get out of it without causing a disaster." "I almost did not get out of it," Tejo said. "I almost gave up a dozen times. But every time I wanted to quit, I thought about Ayla and Vela, about what they would lose if I failed. And I kept going." "That is very romantic," Hana said with a teasing smile. "Do not tell anyone. I have a reputation to maintain." They both laughed. As the station's artificial night began, the reception finally wound down. Guests departed with full stomachs, and heads buzzing with stories to tell. The observation hall slowly emptied until only Tejo, Ayla, and Vela remained. They stood together by the transparent wall, looking out at the stars. Millions of lights scattered across infinite darkness. Somewhere out there were other humans, other Valari, other species living their own complicated lives. But right here, right now, 3 people had found something special. "You know," Vela said thoughtfully, "you could have avoided all of this. If you had simply said you were taken at that first meeting, the rite would never have started." Tejo grinned. "And miss meeting you two?" "Never." Ayla pulled him closer, her strong arm wrapping around his shoulders. "You are strange, human. You faced deadly trials, fought ancient traditions, and challenged one of the most powerful Valari commanders. All for us. Not just for you," Tejo said. "For what is right, for the future, for the chance to build something new." Vela moved to his other side, resting her head against his shoulder. "Our people will talk about this for generations. The human who changed everything. I hope they remember the important part," Tejo said. "What part is that? That change is not weakness. That traditions should serve us, not trap us. That family is worth fighting for, even when the fight seems impossible." They stood there in comfortable silence, 3 hearts beating together, watching the stars spin slowly past. Far across the galaxy, in diplomatic halls and warrior training grounds, in quiet homes and busy marketplaces, stories were being told. Stories about a human who had been playfully single, who had accidentally started a courtship ritual, and who had found love in the most unexpected way. And among certain alien species, a new saying began to spread. A joke, but also a warning. Never challenge a human to a courtship. They will find a way to marry the whole family. Tejo would have laughed if he had heard it, but for now, he was content to stand between his 2 beautiful mates, looking at the endless possibilities written in starlight, and feeling grateful for a future he never expected. It had all started with 4 simple words: "I am single," and it had ended with something far greater than he ever imagined. A new beginning, a new family, a new way forward. Together,